How's it going, everyone? Welcome to REMCO Real Talk with your host, Jay Falconio from REMCO Insurance Services. On today's episode, we have Justin Mendez, owner and operator of Lapstone LLC. At the young age of 26 years old, Justin manages a high production team that oversees currently $10 million worth of manageable assets. Let's dive on in and understand how he operates the company from the ground up. We are here with one of my favorite clients, first-time clients, Justin from Lapstone LLC.
Yes,
Justin,
sir.
thank you so much for being on here.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
And when I say first clients, there were a few people I met at a networking event that was kind of brought up to me from our good friend Brendan Carey from Core. I have to give him a shout out because he is why we started working together. That I wanted to have on this podcast. So I appreciate you making the time.
Thank you for having me again.
Right.
Appreciate all the services that you provide my company. It's been a great experience, and just looking forward to breaking it open.
Let's
We'll
go.
chat a little bit.
Let the world know about Lapstone LLC. That's what today's all about. So, story behind the brand. What's the name resemble?
So the name Lapstone actually represents the stone that a cobbler used to make shoes on way back in the day, like in the medieval times. And to be completely frank about that, when you're starting your business and you're going through the whole LLC structure and you're looking for names, a lot of those names are taken. So
Yeah.
I was looking, maybe that like the 15th or 16th try. I came upon Lapstone and I was like, that sounds pretty good. Construction companies want to sound strong, stone, wall, black, whatever.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how we stumbled on there, but it's turned into a really good opportunity to build the brand that we have today.
I knew it would have some story behind it like that.
Yeah.
And it was so nice to see at the most recent networking event we were at, the Hall of Fame event. I mean, you had a lot of guys in those shirts with those logos on them. Your team is growing, man.
Yes,
So
sir.
is your business. So we're going to talk on that in a little bit later in the episode, but I want to focus a little bit more on you as a person. Just such a wise, beyond your years type of guy. 26. Thanks for correcting me when we first got in. I thought you were a little bit older, but you're 26 years old, and you're managing a large scale construction company. And I need to know, what sparked the interest to start the company.
To be honest, growing up, I always really liked kind of working with my hands. Cars was like my first love.
Mhm.
So I was constantly taking things apart, putting them back together. And I always, I maybe had my head in the clouds a little bit in school. So, there wasn't a lot of promise there.
Because you were a soccer guy,
Yeah.
just like me.
So I was also an athlete.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
I didn't go to college necessarily for the degree. I went for the soccer opportunity, which, was awesome.
Mhm.
But, when you start to get to that senior year and you're like, hey, like, what am I going to do?
Mhm.
I wasn't very prepared. So that summer I graduated. That summer I went to work actually in Hainesport, New Jersey, which is right around here, working for a very small shop. It was literally just me and one other guy. So like I still remember to this day, my first day in the construction industry, there was about 252 by 4s that needed to go to the back deck. And he said, hey, let's get started. We're going to start moving those. So literally go from that moment to where we're at now. Definitely, in kind of retrospect, it's been a long journey for sure. In this 6 years, we're going on 6 years now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can truly say I started from very limited knowledge in construction, no formal training. But I think the one benefit I had with that gentleman is that he really did all aspects of construction, and I was right there next to him.
Well-rounded.
Yes.
He
So
knew the industry.
we were doing additions, we were doing, small home builds. But when I say literally me and him built the entire house, it was like that.
That's
so
incredible.
Framing, footings. I still remember, digging footings, doing all that. So that's been helpful for me as we grew because I truly understand what it takes at each phase because I've actually done the work.
A to Z. And it must be so much more rewarding too when you actually have seen the project from start to finish and you're actually in control of all that. Would you say, but the one thing that really stands out to me is where were you able to pick up on those leadership and those, because you're really managing this large scale team right now. Would you say that dates back to maybe some of your sports and some of the years in college and what it's like to manage a team and provide leadership?
I would definitely say so. I was definitely a heavy athlete in general at George School where I went to high school. So always had that captain type of role.
Mhm.
I was also a prefect in the dorms. That was a boarding school, by the way.
I know
In
exactly
high
where
school.
it is. It's right near my home turf where I grew up. I grew up in Langhorne,
Exactly.
right
So
up the
I have
street.
major love for that place, though.
Yeah,
Major
yeah.
love. That place is responsible for making me the man that I am today. So
That's awesome.
super thankful for all the teachers, all the guidance that I got there.
Absolutely.
But and I think it also comes from growing up at a young age. I come from like a single mother household, so being the man of the house, you got to grow up pretty quickly, and a lot of things are your responsibility as a young man. So I think that has all molded me into the kind of leader that I am today, and still learning every day. Though I always want to preface a lot of my kind of my input and my knowledge that people may ask for me is like I'm still a student of the game. And I think that that's what it really takes to be successful.
Humble and smart, man.
Yes.
And you should always be a student of the game. There's always somebody up there who's doing something at a little bit of a higher level. And one of our guests previously, they said there's a checklist I do every day, and then there's this last checkbox at the very bottom. Once I complete all the things, and sometimes on my checklist, it's like make my bed because I love them. I love them feel good checks.
You got to tick those off.
I just and there's this app I use. I'll mention it again. It's called Asana, and it's like there's like this. They reward you with a nice like emoji or something when you finish it. I just want to see it. But you get to the bottom, right? And you complete your day. Maybe there's 20, 25 tasks, but at the very bottom, it's like this uncheckable box, and it's what are you going to do to take whatever you did to the next level. And that really kind of resonated with me. And, the things that you learned, at the George School, playing sports, bringing that leadership into, your setting with that gentleman who taught you all those things. It was, you don't know everything, and every day you're going to learn something. And I believe it, Justin, man, you're going to have a team of 300, 400, 500 people. You're still a student of the game.
Yes.
Still a student of the game.
You have to be a business owner. And I think, momentum is so important when it comes to owning a business, and you always have to be a student in order to maintain that momentum, right? If you're always trying to get to the next level, momentum helps build more momentum. And I think that that's crucial. The moment you stop learning, you're standing still. And although there's this concept of stabilization, your business is running well. There's another person that just opened up their business and they're coming for your market share.
They're hungry. Hungry dogs.
And
Hungry
this entrepreneurship stuff can be painted, on social media as, very happy-go-lucky. But I do think that to an extent you have to have like a warlike mindset.
I love it.
And
that's great.
It's no disrespect to any of the competition. It's more, accountability to myself.
100%. So. And they say business is one of the best sports.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, it is a sport. And when I come across, I'll say REMCO has hundreds of contractors on the books, all shapes and sizes. Your account is definitely growing because your business is growing, and I can see that. But when I go on your social media page, I am like so impressed with the quality of what you're doing. So let's speak to that a little bit, because I know so many contractors out there who are like, kind of making their own excuses of why I can't put out content. And some of them are doing the best they can, but your level of content with the drones and all that kind of stuff, I mean, it's beautiful, man. Like,
Thank you.
What kind of led you to realize that you needed to do it at that high level, and kind of like, who are some of the players behind that?
Of course. So I think there's a few kind of, I guess you would say like standard issues when it comes to being a good contractor, right? And I made it very clear to my staff and very clear to myself about those things that you need to break in regards to people's beliefs about contracting, right? There's this kind of theme around us that, we're broke, we're bad people, we don't finish jobs, we don't communicate well.
You don't pay your insurance.
Yeah, we don't pay our insurance. We don't do a lot of things. So for me, it's really important to provide evidence, right? So that's where that social media comes from, is that for us, we made 2 rules when we were first starting, and it really helped. It was run through the finish line. So in contracting, that's permit complete, CO, ready to move in, and communicate. Just communicate at every step. We actually like to think we over-communicate to our clients. So when you think about your competition, and in my realm, it's general contracting, if you can just do those 2 things, you're better than 95% of contractors. And that's where, we really rose to the top pretty quickly. You only have to follow those 2 rules, and you'll be fine. But when it comes to the social media aspect of it and the evidence, that's, again, another myth of contracting. This person may not have the evidence required to take on a big project, so I'm trying to create that, right? That. Instagram is like a portfolio, and that's how we treat it, right? So we look at things like the activity, the the frequency of our post, all that's important. So like when you think, people see Lapstone's logo almost every day, that's intentional, right?
Absolutely.
So it looks like we're always busy, and we are very busy, but would you rather have a busy contractor or not busy contractor?
100%.
I tell people a lot that time as well. So, busy doesn't come necessarily cheap, but trust me, I've ran into the horror stories with a lot of other investors, some of them being our friends,
Yeah, absolutely. I'm with you.
And it happens all the time.
I could say out of our network and all of our close friends, I mean, I've never heard one bad thing said about Lapstone or you as a business owner. I think you're doing an incredible job.
I appreciate
that.
I really do.
To that. And I will say that outside of that, it's like, I always heard like if you're a contractor, you're not busy, that means you're not good. But my question is, sometimes you can be busy, it doesn't mean you're good, it just means you didn't scale.
Yeah.
And you're scaling. Like I can see that on
scaling pretty quickly.
Yeah, very much. And I want to get into the projects that you got going on and the locations, but from an insured standpoint and a client standpoint, we're looking at your business and you're just really doing all the little things right. And I'm happy to see that we talked about it in a lot of episodes, the control factor of being that business owner and then relinquishing control. You were that guy who spent time with that gentleman and learned everything from A to Z, and like that. And for you to be able to hand off certain tasks after that you're the best person and you might be the best person for the job, but giving enough trust in somebody to execute that job is how you really scale.
I mean, I learned this at a very young age, I feel like, and I'm not exactly sure where it came from, but I'm a believer that the best investments you can make are in people.
100%.
Right? So like
Absolutely.
In other people, for me, the return on investment is infinite. There's no way to really quantify it, but it's definitely worth it. So when I build a team, I can work with basically two attributes. I can work with loyalty and I can work with trust. I can teach everything else. And we're at the level now where necessarily hiring, I may not have the time to teach all the time. But in the beginning, those are just two qualities that really built my business, right? So you have to be willing as a business owner to understand that they might not do it as good as you can do it. But that's okay.
That is.
What I'm looking for is like 65 to 70% of my capability.
Yeah.
Because what that does is that frees up my time.
Yeah.
And when you're a business owner, velocity of time and money is the only thing you should be worried about. So, when it comes to how you value your time, it's a simple kind of trick that I catch myself doing. If you think about a task that you're doing and you assign an hourly rate to it, if it's below what you think you should be making, that needs to be delegated.
100%.
And that's where contractors fail.
Absolutely.
So I see them a lot of times, and I can only speak to contracting.
You have like this like Wall Street way of thinking about these things, but you build them on so many simple. You left us with a few things. If you know these two things, you mentioned that previously in the podcast, you keep it simple and short.
Have to.
But then you also know that it really, when it comes down to it, it's a dollars game, and at that point, and you can think as a visionary or the owner of the company, and you're not going to be able to tap into your creative talents or the way that you can really take the company from a 1 to a 4 if you don't have that time to just like get out of that stress coma. Because some of the best ideas are only capable of being thought about when you remove yourself from the minutia or the weeds of the operation.
I say that it's very difficult. It's extremely difficult to get to that level. So that's when you transition from a survivalist business to actually a business that wants to grow and stabilize.
Sure.
And 6 years in, I feel like we got to that point in year 3 or 4.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
If you're not willing to not make a nickel for the first 2 or 3 years, then you have to do a self-assessment of yourself and understand that you might not be able to be a successful entrepreneur.
Sure. So bring us up to speed. I'm curious about the projects. I see all the Instagram posts and whatnot. So geographically, I know that you're all over, but where are your hot spots right now?
So, I mean, we're obviously based out of Philly. Yep. We have a ton of projects going on in Philly, but we've branched out to Delaware, North Jersey, South Jersey. We do a lot in like Montgomery County, Bucks County as well. Right now at this very moment, there's 26 active projects, about $8 to $10 million in active construction right now. Got a few more million on the queue, but we obviously got to get through this workload first.
Sure.
But we started off basically just servicing the inner city area, and it kind of just grew, as we grew. Yeah. And I think, we, at least as the owner, I always pretty much seized any opportunity for growth, because in entrepreneurship, you have to be a risk taker. There's going to be multiple times in your business where you have to push your chips to the center of the table, and you got to be confident in that bet if you want to grow.
Yeah.
And I just touched on, if you don't want to grow, then you're just going to die.
Yeah.
Right.
No, that's true.
Yeah.
And I remember when we were first getting to know each other, you were doing a lot of that inner city work. And what was that like? Was that a little scary at times?
I mean, I've experienced everything under the sun in the 6 years. Whether it be things stolen on sites, robberies, vandalism here or there. But it's just par for the course, honestly.
Sure.
These are the things that come with growing.
Yeah.
Growing is expensive.
Growing is expensive. It could be a little dangerous in your line of work. So I'm glad you made it out of there in one piece, because at that time you were doing that inner city work. I mean, I know it wasn't really the safest of locations.
Definitely not.
Now, would you still take jobs down there, or you kind of?
Yeah, I mean, I still do currently, but
kind of keeps you humble.
Yeah, exactly.
Brings you back to where you started.
That's the one thing that I think also maybe makes me a little different from another contractors. Like you said, I think I have a very analytical approach to contracting.
Yes.
And it's all about the data points for me. So if the data works, because we store a lot of data on a lot of our projects, like I'm telling you to the hours spent on a particular task, the exact money that was spent, a lot of metrics go into the way that I make decisions.
Sure.
And also, now that the data is so developed over the years, I know a lot about project profitability before I even touch it.
They're educated decisions, and that's the beautiful thing.
Yep.
Is it a proprietary CRM? Is it something that you house it in, or is it just like a master Excel document or something like that?
So I use a system similar to Asana. It's called Monday.
I know Monday.com.
So it's not free. It's pretty expensive when you add a lot of users, but for me, I've been using it since we kind of started, and I always had the mindset that, like, although I'm not a big business, we need to operate like we are. So when we get an opportunity to become one, you feel very comfortable.
Otherwise, the person will know you're not a big business right away if you don't know how to operate when a big account comes in. I say that a lot to our agents too. Like, we do small, medium-sized business. We have some large accounts on the books. Those large accounts, they need to think that we are the Graham Insurance in the city that has multi-million dollars, the Geicos of the world, like the big Univest companies. They need to think that we're tied to big banks and big money, but in reality, we're operating like that company in Bucks County. But the moment that we slip up on the smallest thing, we show our true colors. So you have to be ready to handle those big fish when they come along.
You have to be in, I think I was thinking something like this the other day, where it's like, you will take big opportunities and you will, inevitably fall short sometimes. That's the cost of ambition, right?
Sure.
So not everyone is going to go well, but I'd rather have those at-bats than not, right?
Yeah.
If you're batting 400, you're an MVP, right?
Absolutely.
So that's how I look at it.
So many good, kind of comments and quotes, and I'm feeling inspired right now. I can see how, even though I'm not a contractor, I would really appreciate working alongside you.
I can appreciate that. Because I do think we are incredibly unique in our approach, right? Contracting is an old field. When I go to L&I meetings or when I go to zoning meetings, I'm the youngest person by about 20 years, it seems like. So
it doesn't matter, man.
There's a lot, and that's how I feel.
That's like that. That's what that should light that fire, and I'm sure it does.
That's how I feel every time I walk in that room. I'm just like, listen, there's a ton of business to clean up because these guys are getting tired. Yeah, and I feel like a rookie still.
Now you're ready to go. You got the hungry heart. I love that, and don't lose that, because I think you see it a lot in insurance too. And some insurance agents, they've been doing it for 20, 30 years, and in insurance, you have the residual. You have the renewals, right? And sometimes that's enough for people to, live comfortably and have a good life. I don't even think there's any amount of money that would stop me from hunting new business and getting to know new people. I think that I fall more in love with the business as a whole, like the client's business. I like to know, how many employees did you have when you started? How many employees you have now? What are you doing outside of the company? What are you getting involved in the community? Like, that's what I fall in love with, because before insurance, I oversaw a restaurant, an online store. We had about 65 people on payroll, but I was obsessed with the workers. And to get that type of work, it was more commissary batch cooking. It was hard work, and it was a very rough demographic of person who wanted to do the job. I mean, just an example, one of our guys,
that's construction,
he'd clock
too.
in. Yeah, he'd clock in at 8 a.m. And I said, "Hey, John, how you doing?" He says, and I'll be honest, he's like, 31 days clean. So I said, "All right, congrats, John. All right, for the next 8 hours, I need you to cook 4,500 chicken breast to 165 degrees for 15 seconds on the inside." I said, "All right, happy to do it, Jay." So we employed a lot of people, giving them a second chance. The work was not glorified by any means, but I sure as hell made them feel like it was. And I feel like contracting is very similar.
Extremely similar
You
field.
know, a box of donuts will go all day in terms of,
just,
you know, your
just being intentional, you know, about
right.
the care of employees. I think that's a great way to think about it. Because again, I think that's also necessary to be successful is like, I see too much where like money, you know, people want money in business. Obviously, it's all about the bottom line, but like money to me is on the right side of the equal sign. So when I say that you need a few variables on the left side first to get to the money, a lot of people are like, you know,
they're not
money,
willing
money,
to give
money.
that up.
They're not.
They're not willing to give it up. They want it right away.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's a few things that are on that left side, you know, where, you know, you have to be intentional about the care of the people you work with. You know, you have to do honest work, be a hardworking. All those variables will then equal a ton of money. So for me, I never really focused on the money. It was more about the product and the reputation. Now, like 5 years in, I'm starting to see it pay off. And I know that it's only up from here because now you have that base. Sure. And then you're ready to soar.
You have the data. You have the analytics. You have the data. You're making educated decisions. So I guess where my next question is going to take me is you have the data, you have the information to give you wise decisions on previous choices and risks that you took. What's the next risk? Like, are you looking to get into something totally wild that you don't have the data to back just to grow the company? Is there any new projects on the horizon? Is any job too big?
No, for me, I'm chasing some big jobs. So, you know, like I said, I'm willing to be considered a student for the rest of my life. Like, is that the price, you know, that you can pay, you know, in order to grow your business? A lot of people may not feel that way. So we do have what I call like the stabilized part of the business, and it runs like clockwork now. I don't even have to be there. So now I'm over here thinking, you know, what's the next mountaintop? What's the next risk I'm going to take? And for Lapstone, that's just getting into some pretty big multifamily development style projects. So unit counts going up. You know, I want to start doing 20 to 30 unit buildings. There you go. Right now, you know, we can manage effectively and perform really nicely on like 8 to 10 unit buildings. Anything below is pretty easy as well. Sure. So it's about doubling up that unit count, which means way bigger projects, way bigger expenditures, you know, a lot more people's hands in the pot. Sure. So for Lapstone, we're a general contracting company. I don't try to kind of, you know, mix that up, but the next portion is actually developing deals and having the money inside as well. So like we'll make money on the fee and construction, and then we'll make money on the stabilization of the property, and then I'll manage the property. You know, if we rent it out, if we sell it, that'll be up to me as the kind of lead investor. Of course. So smart. And would you have saw yourself doing something this 6 years ago? Did you know that this was going to be like, because this is the wisest move for you right now, because you just mentioned you have one operation that's running like clockwork that is making you money to almost reinvest in your new ventures, in your new ideas, in these new creative thoughts. You know, I love that that's the next step. And I guess like sometimes at that point where you're only focused and you're so hyper focused on that one operation that now is running flawlessly without you, like that used to be like, this is it for me. But now you're already thinking, now this is keeping the lights on. Yes. I'm using this to do this. So it's just like, sometimes you just never know where your dreams can take you if you really just give it your all. I mean, I fell in love with construction, you know, from the first day, honestly. So like I keep harping is like, that's what it takes. Like you cannot go into any type of business with the mindset that you are just going to try and make money. Yeah. I'm telling you, I've tried it. It doesn't work. Yeah. You know, for sure. Like that's not a big enough motivator to get through those really difficult times of entrepreneurship. So you just got to love it. Like you said, like you love that restaurant business, even though it wasn't necessarily. I'm still trying to figure out how I can make the insurance business the restaurant business. But I mean, it really is in your mission statement. You know, when we did the heavy rebrand in 2019, you know, we marketed as we're a hospitality company that just so happens to sell insurance. We're doing the white glove insurance services, because how do we set ourselves apart from, you go to the networking events, we're with 250 people at some of those events. There's probably 20 insurance agents in the room. How do I set myself out as somebody who's just not selling insurance? You're trying to sell the experience. So on that, you know, I give you credit for that. I already feel like we've kind of addressed it, but if you want to bring it up, like what sets your company, what sets Lapstone away from the others, but I really I feel like we've been really hovering around that. I mean, I think it's much of the same. It's
Okay.
just doing what the competition obviously is not. So
Yeah.
that's kind of how we approach it.
Okay, so this is one of my favorite questions that we went over. So outside of Lapstone, the Justin version, what routines do you do? What routines do you see yourself engaging in to kind of keep you at the top of your game, keep you logged in, keep you checked in, and then inversely, what do you do to kind of cool down?
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah,
I think I am honestly pretty locked in at all times
yeah,
on the
I
business,
could tell.
and that is I tell people a lot of times that's a blessing and a curse, right? A lot of people look at my life and have this impression he's got it all going on, very big company, very successful gentleman. There's a price you really have to pay on the back end,
Yes, sir.
and that's a lot of missed family time,
Yes,
a lot of
sir.
missed time with the girlfriend, a lot of hours, late nights, early mornings, and that may sound cliche, but it's the truth.
It's the
So
truth. Yeah.
it's like, are you willing to pay that price? So I have found my dream. I'm not complaining. I'm very happy,
Good for you.
but there's a commitment that you have to be ready to give to that dream. And if you're not ready, it just makes you anxious and
I
bitter.
appreciate your rawness with that too, and also just being a little vulnerable because that is the truth of the matter. And I think, finding that person that you might be spending your time with, in this case, your girlfriend or somebody that they need to understand it. They really do, and sometimes that's really hard.
It's incredibly hard.
It's incredibly difficult.
I don't
and
think a lot of people will ever truly, really understand.
No,
And maybe they're not supposed to.
I was just gonna say maybe that's
Yeah.
enough for them to realize that it's not their choice or their way of life. So you touched on that. For me too, I struggle with that. Always feeling on the
Yeah.
weekends. I think there's something almost like about entrepreneurs or people who are trying to always perfect their business or come where I don't think there's moments throughout the day where I'm not thinking about the company.
I don't
You
think
ever
so
catch
either.
yourself that? Like I'm
Yeah.
I'm driving or I'm going to the gym or I'm
It's
watching a
constant.
sports game and then I'm thinking about like what's this person need to do to get to the next level?
Yep.
I'm thinking about someone else's success
That's
on a Saturday.
That's
Like,
what it
what's
takes.
going on,
And that's what it'll take over your mind, right? So
Yeah, so
it can be, and I'd be interested to flip it to you in the sense where like
yeah.
because it's important as entrepreneurs to also like recharge too.
Yeah.
I haven't mastered that yet. So I wake up and I
You're
love
still
it
a little
so
younger
much.
than me.
Yeah,
You're still like
that-
10. You got 8 years on me. But
I
you
run
will,
on adrenaline every day for the last 5
Yeah.
years, and it's grown the business incredibly. I'm
I hear
so
you.
passionate every time I wake up, but there are times where I'm exhausted.
I'll do a little bit of I
Yeah.
guess my suggestion would be you have to find some form of release, and God, I hope it's a healthy release, right?
Yeah,
Because there are so
it's
many
gotta
other
be.
ways. There are so many other ways to kind of be counterproductive and find things to kind of calm yourself down or distract you that just take you away from it. For me, it's just the endorphin release. I like to,
Mhm.
stay active. And I know that sounds so super cliche, but when I am doing that, I turn my phone on Do Not Disturb. And that's like, I started doing that a couple years ago. And that was hard for me because I would
Definitely.
I would start like, like getting nervous and checking my phone in between. But the moment I checked my phone, it was like, did I really need to do that? Yeah, probably I'm going to have to, if I have it on Do Not Disturb for about an hour and a half, yeah, I'm going to come back to probably like 20 missed calls and a bunch of text
Yeah.
messages, but I'll be in a better mindset to do that.
Just work through them.
Yeah, just work through them at that instead of because then instead of that hour and a half or hour that I'm at the gym, then it turns into 3 hours because I'm just like stop, start. And then, people aren't getting the right time or attention. I'm sending emails and I'm fat thumbing stuff and I'm just like, what am I doing? So to answer your question more directly, I try to hollow out me time. It's the only way for me to do that. And at your age, I wasn't doing this.
Yeah.
So like I think it hit when I was like 30 and I really started to be like, wow, like I'm kind of hitting that burnout mode that I needed to find stuff. And the other piece is like physically removing myself. I took a trip in November to Missouri because there's another insurance agency out that way. And I'll name drop Cody Askins is the owner of the company, runs a company at a really, really high level. They do a lot of like health insurance, IULs and stuff like that. But his creativity behind what he does, like he created his own insurance reality TV show and
Nice.
has it on like YouTube. And now Netflix is looking into buying it. I needed to take myself to Missouri in November to think creatively about how REMCO was going to take it to the next level. Because even though I was plugged in, I was locked in at home in Philly, I couldn't figure it out. So a whole week out in Missouri, I came back with some good tactile knowledge. He's gave me a few tips. So it worked. So if it's just physical activity and removing yourself to enjoy the physical activity or taking yourself out of your geographic location, even if you're somewhere to work, that might help. Yeah, because... But, so that's kind of...
No, I can wholeheartedly agree with that. And I think that, now that both of these businesses, are at the level where you're stabilized, the lights will stay on if you are not there. that's fine. I'm now trying to shift my mindset as a business owner to, you don't necessarily have to hustle now. You kind of got to be strategic and play chess a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for me, I learned through another podcast is that, like, if CEOs and business owners can just make one or two good decisions a day, that's all it's going to take.
That's true.
That's all it's going to take. So figure out what those big ones are and just handle one. So like sometimes, nowadays I sit in my office and I do feel like a little idle. But like you said, that gives me an opportunity to just sit there and think for a second.
Creatively. Yeah.
Yeah, and just be like, how are we going to get to this target that I have on the board? Because that's another way I stay locked in. My office looks like Einstein's chambers. There's whiteboards everywhere. It looks like a crazy person. So I'm constantly looking around and I'm like, so I have this target to hit this amount of revenue, or whatever this goal may be.
So you're a writer downer, because they sell this paint. I'm looking at it right now. It's whiteboard paint.
Yeah.
So you can paint your walls this color. I'm sure you probably
I have that paint. So like our conference room is like that. We have two conference rooms, both have that space. And as far as like keeping myself locked in, just to get kind of back to that, I'm still, I'm very young, but I'm still very old school. So I have a journal. Like I don't do well with technology on my phone, honestly. So like if I have my laptop in front of me, I need to see it a little bigger, but I write down, who I need to contact, and I check it off. And
that
feels
writing.
Good.
It's the
physical.
writing. Well, it's the physical writing too. And the most successful people, I think it's like 4% of the most successful people in the world actually write down their goals.
Yeah,
so that's another thing. Like if you're doing that, I know it sounds so silly, but it's like
muscle memory, man.
Just write it down.
Yeah.
And your goal maybe 6 years ago was to work on multifamily houses and stuff like that. And you were probably like, this is crazy. But now you're like, you're doing it.
No, I mean, I definitely, through all the ups and downs, I did everything I said I was going to do.
No regrets too.
Like to this point. Yeah. And I don't regret it at all. So now it's just about figuring out what that next mountaintop is and trying to go.
Well, my goal is with this, I hope that this kind of gets your name out there even more than it already is. We share a lot of connections. There's a lot of people that should feel, responsible for us kind of working together and being on this show.
Shout out to Nick.
So I want to give Nick, I want to give Brendan, all the guys at Hall of Fame. Who else am I forgetting that we work with? Carl, Carl.
Carl, that's my boy, Carl. I'll see you Saturday.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, I just want to mention if there's any way for someone to get in touch with you other than like the gram or anything like that. Like, are you guys working on any other contact form, or like if someone wanted to be like, hey, I need Lapstone as like my GC, something like that?
So there is on our website, there's a contact form that we have two of them. So one's for a general inquiry for any work that you may need done. And, from this podcast, I'm sure you can tell we'd like to take on a few bigger projects.
Sure. Yeah.
We don't really get into the kitchen remodels or anything like that. Yeah. But so there's one form there. And then there's another form for investors who want to invest with us. So, I talked about building these GPLP deal structures, on some bigger projects, some really big boy type of real estate stuff. Yeah. So, if anyone's interested in teaming up with a qualified GC, it's obviously a ton of references. Portfolio goes crazy. So,
definitely check out that gram too.
Yeah, like, I'll definitely be willing to chat about anything. I mean, like I said, our company, our management team and everything, we're able to manage quite a bit of projects. So that's awesome. We're always looking.
That's great. I love that. I love that hungry heart. The hungry dog will eat first.
You ain't lying, man.
You mentioned a lot of good things, and you did a really good job on this podcast too to break it down. Like, it's not, don't think about a list of 10 things. Just focus on these 2 things. Do them really well, and then take it from there.
Because I think, just to kind of wrap it all up, is that what you kind of see a lot, and always looking around, because I feel like a student is like, you see a lot of people are like an inch deep in like 7 different things.
Yes.
And there's this misconception that, a millionaire needs 7 streams of income. It's really not true.
Yes.
You need to be really good at one thing.
I agree.
That one thing's going to make you the money that you can use to invest in those other things.
I agree.
But you can't be working on your Shopify store, your Amazon store, your construction company. Like, at least in construction, it's way too specialized. Like, we build the houses that you live in. You would not, go to your doctor and ask for it cheaper.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
It's so true. And that resonates so much because it's similar to the way that we kind of broke things out. Because insurance, like contracting, a lot of people used to make a ton of money back in the day saying that I'm a jack of all trades.
Yeah.
I can do it all. And, a jack of all trades is a master of none. In insurance, that's kind of the term that I use. And I feel like it's absolutely true with yours. So when growing the agency, like, the reason why Carl's your agent is because Carl does insurance for contractors and like 2 other industries similar to contractors. And that's it. If you were, an auto, like if you were a truck driver
Yeah.
or if you had a fleet of Sprinter vans or, Amazon Relay or something like that, you wouldn't have never met Carl really. You might know of him, but you would be dealing with Irina. So a lot of our agents they're hyper focused on 3 to 4 products. What that does for them is it allows them to be killers at them.
You have to be.
And in that level too, it's almost so weird because then it gets me thinking more about your realm where like they build better relationships with the carriers that want the insurance. They build better relationships with the underwriters who are either going to say, we will insure this person or we won't. So you build better relationships with your referral partners.
Yes. You guys are a bridge between two people. Between two parties, right?
That's right.
And you got to be a strong bridge. Like,
that's right.
We also deeply specialize too. Like, I have project managers that only handle one style of project.
Yes.
And it may seem like an assembly line style, may seem a little boring, but it gets the results done.
Hyper-focused.
And also what also helps them is that in order to get to that next level, because our projects are separated by reference class, the data goes in each class.
Sure.
But project managers who work in reference class 1, if they want to get to 5, which is big multi for us, you had to work your way through the ranks. The pay works accordingly. So we've mapped out their way to promotion, their way to advancement, while also staying organized. Because that's another thing. One of the things that I really believe is important about business is like the owners here.
Yeah.
Everything we do during the day has to have like 4 or 5 different uses.
Sure.
It can't have one use. So, me designing that data collection system, it also just by default was a pay raise system too.
That's so analytical. I love that because then it brings all the questioning about, am I doing a good job? Do I get a raise? It's like, well, the system says you've hit this benchmark.
Exactly.
Now you get the raise.
Yep. It's that simple. It's black and white. I don't have those conversations. Tenure means nothing to me. Honestly, it means nothing to me. I think it's a reasonable
reason to get lazy.
Yep. Yeah. And I think it's a reasonable expectation.
So many people are going to be mad I said that, but
it is what it is, man. Yeah. I think it's a reasonable expectation for us to expect improvement every single day.
I go through this a lot with a lot of the union workers that I deal with, or a lot of like the teachers that
those guys are punching clocks.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Just punching out.
They get a cup of paint.
Yeah.
And they go paint a wall for 8 hours.
Yep.
And make it last. So
I can't have that.
I'll just they know if they're listening, they know who I'm talking about them. But to your point, like. And then when I was out in Missouri, not to bring that up just one more time, though, he built an amazing metric where basically, and you might think this is unfair, but it's actually ascending and descending. So if you stop, it's a sales job though too. Yeah. So if you stop selling at level 4 for a period of time, you drop down to a level 3. And if you stop selling at a level 3, drop down to level 2, and then there's a base pay tied to the level that you're at. So like you might have worked for the company for 10 years and you're a level 5. I think 5 was the highest, and you make the largest base, and you make a residual off all the other people in all the other levels, which is also great.
That's awesome.
But the moment that your sales start to dip at a level 5, you start dropping down.
I love it.
I know. I went back to the agency. I told a few people, they're like, "You're a monster."
I'm like, listen, I need killers around here. I really do, man.
Yeah.
No, that's a good one. I'm gonna have to take that
ascending and descending metric scale. Hey, listen, Justin, I appreciate your time. Again, if you are listening and you want to get to know Justin, check him out at Lapstone. His Instagram's fantastic. If you want to be a guest on the pod show, REMCO Real Talk, there's a link in the Instagram handle on our page. This podcast will also be on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube.
Let's go.
And we're getting our word out there, man.
Awesome.
I appreciate you being on here.
Thank you for the opportunity, man.
All right.
Looking forward to a lot more business, obviously.
Let's go make money.
Let's do it.
All right. See ya.